All right, Alexander, we have got the Freedom Convoy. Hundreds, thousands of trucks and people descending to Ottawa to protest and to be heard with regards to the mandates, Trudeau's mandates. And Trudeau should have been there, and he should have listened to what the people had to say. Maybe he should have spoken with some of the people, maybe people in a leading position, to understand their point of view, or maybe try to get them to see things your way. I mean, if your point is so strong, if your policy is so strong. But Trudeau didn't do that. He came out and he said that he had to go into isolation because he had contact with someone who had the COOF, and he said he had to isolate for 5 days, which is not the correct policy. That's not the policy if you come in contact with someone. It's pretty much isolate for a day and get tested, and there you go. So he made that excuse, and then the narrative switched, and they said that he had to be moved into a bunker, into hiding because of the crowds. And they tried to actually spin this as some sort of another, say, January 6th. They're trying to float that out there, the media in Canada. They're trying to float, this is Putin's fault, and Putin's behind this narrative. So they're getting very, very desperate to try and rationalize why all of these people have all of a sudden come to Ottawa and are so upset, because these elite and these globalists, in their ideology, they just can't comprehend what is going on because they're so out of touch with the people. But anyway, this is a huge movement. It started in Canada. Truckers all over the world now are getting involved. I've heard Australia, I've heard Italy, I believe the UK as well. I mean, the US, this is really starting to pick up speed. I wonder if this is if this is the moment where things change, or if this is just another dent in the armor of the Build Back Better, Great Reset agenda. I wonder if this is just a dent in it, or if this is the big turning point. Anyway, what is your take on?
I think it's a very, very big turning point, because can I just say, I mean, without truckers, without those people who drive the lorries, and I should say I know people who drive lorries. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. Without those people involved, I mean, economies, modern economies, in any form cannot function. In fact, the whole business about people driving lorries and moving things around, and the importance of having people driving lorries and moving things around, in itself shows how utterly utopian the Great Reset idea actually is. Because even if you automate everything to the maximum degree possible, you still need people to do the kind of work that truckers are doing. And you can't take humans ultimately out of the equation. What you have been doing, and again, as I said, I know a lot about trucking because it's something I was involved in. I mean, logistics and all that sort of thing. What has happened over the years, over the last 40 or so years, is that conditions for people who do this sort of work have steadily deteriorated. Once upon a time, they were very highly regarded, well-paid workers. It was always very, very hard work, gruelingly hard work. But if you remember the old days, the Teamsters and all those people in the US, or the TNG in Britain, it was always understood that these were, people who actually played an absolutely critical role in the way in which economies functioned. They were well regarded. Their unions played a big role in national life. And they were often, by the way, quite conservative people. They were not by any means necessarily militant. But what they have seen is that with every passing year, conditions for them, working conditions, pay conditions, have deteriorated. And that now, I think, they've reached breaking point. And in Europe, they are very important. They are essential. But of course, in North America, in Canada, the United States, Australia, these vast continental countries and economies with these huge distances that you have to move goods around. Well, I mean, you can't live or function. An economy can't function without these people. So they are absolutely pivotal workers, and their experience of deteriorating conditions is one that is common to millions of people. I mean, a critical mass of people have been experiencing that deterioration. But the truckers are key, because within that vast critical mass of people, they are a key, pivotal labour group. Without them, as I said, it simply doesn't work. And coming back to what you said, here we have Trudeau hiding in a bunker from his own people. I mean, that is an appalling thing. Now, I'm no great fan of Lukashenko. You remember Lukashenko? He is the president of Belarus. He had a whole uprising on his hands. He had people on the streets. There were talks of strikes. What did he do? He took a helicopter, flew into a factory, and spoke to the workers in the factory, had arguments with them, took difficult questions, persuaded them to stay in work. And that was leadership. That was real leadership. What does Trudeau do? He hides in a bunker. Lukashenko is the dictator. Trudeau is the great Democrat. Well, you wouldn't believe that from the way those two people have acted in a crisis.
Yeah, afraid of his own people, which is why I said if he had any guts, if he had any leadership skills, he would have stayed in Ottawa and he would have spoken with those protesters. He would have engaged with them.
Absolutely.
Especially if his position is so secure, if his policy is so correct and just and righteous, then he should have defended it. And if he had defended it, he would have won if his position is so perfect. But it's not. He knows it.
Well,
the other thing about Lukashenko,
it tells us something else.
Quick,
go on. Yeah.
No, I just want to say that your Lukashenko point is good, because not only did Lukashenko, not only was he facing protesters that were on the street, but he was facing pretty much the entire West.
Yes.
The media, the EU, the United States, and he still went and spoke to the people.
Absolutely, and gained. I mean, even many people in that factory who were annoyed and angry with him came away respecting the fact that he'd come and spoken to them. But that's the point, because you see, Lukashenko, one does, again, this isn't a pen in praise of Lukashenko. There's much to criticize about Lukashenko, and that's underestimating how many problems with Lukashenko there is. But the point is, he isn't afraid of working people. Well, he isn't frightened of them. Trudeau is afraid of working people. He doesn't know how to talk to them. He doesn't understand them. He doesn't speak their language or listen to them. And the result is that he's scared of them. And the result is that he hides in a basement. And think of another leader who won an election hiding in a basement. And contrast that again with another leader in North America who went on campaign and went out and spoke to people and won their extraordinary support in contrast to what everybody expected. And of course, I'm talking about Donald Trump and and Biden over the course of the 2020 election. I mean, you can't win people's support unless you give the impression that you respect them, that you're prepared to talk with them, that you're willing to engage with them, and at a fundamental level, if you have any aspiration to be a democratic leader, that you actually like them. And with Trudeau, he doesn't like them. He doesn't respect them. He's afraid of them. And that's why he's hiding in a bunker.
Yeah, these are not leaders. These are media-created puppets, media-conjured-up puppets. They're not real leaders. They're not leaders at all. They're actors. They're actors, and they're playing a role. And it shows.
Absolutely. What does he think these truckers are going to do to him? Eat him? I mean, it's ludicrous. I mean, maybe they might boo him. They booed Lukashenko, if you remember. I mean, he got some catcalls and boos. but he still faced it down. He still came out and talked and met people and took them on. Well, Trudeau obviously is scared. He is the Prime Minister of Canada, but he can't risk booze.
Yeah. And they want to go to war with Russia. Yeah, right. One of the most interesting... Yeah.
A good example, because, I mean, I remember during the 2008 crisis, Putin came out again and went to the factories to talk to people. And, of course, during the protests in 2011, he did the same. I mean, I remember him, calling out his supporters, speaking to people directly. And I remember he put himself through an hideously difficult meeting with some of the mothers, Beslan, that village which was where a lot of people were killed during the Chechen war, and he was criticised by the mothers for that. And in fact, he met them, and they were incredibly abusive towards him to his face, but he withstood it and spoke to them, and won a grudging respect for doing that. So that's leadership. That's how you have to be if you're going to be the leader of your country. If you want to talk about de Gaulle went into Notre Dame during the liberation of Paris. There were German snipers, hunting out for him, but he showed himself. He showed himself to the people of France. Trudeau hides in a basement. Leadership versus, well, I don't even want to use words. If I started to use words to describe what I think this is, I would be saying things which I might regret.
Yeah. So, going back to the Lukashenko narrative, Lukashenko not only went and spoke to the people, he was also facing a lot of criticism from the media, a lot of criticism. I mean, even local media, all the way to the local media that's bought and paid for by the West, as well as the international media, really attacked him. Once again, we're not here saying that Lukashenko is a good guy or a bad guy. That's not the point. The point is that he had the guts to talk to the people. In this case, you have a media which is not only supportive of Trudeau, they actually try to cover for him. And it's the same thing that they continue to do with Biden. And it's getting to the point of comical. I mean, I'm on the CBC website right now, the state Canadian website. And one of the articles I pulled up is Ottawa mayor would like protesters to move on, but organizers say they're not going anywhere. Police are now investigating incidents at Unknown Soldiers Memorial, Terry Fox statue. So here you have the media. They're covering for Trudeau. They're now trying to paint the narrative of bad protesters, of protesters who are, the insurrectionist word now I'm sure is going to start filtering around their circles. And Trudeau still has to go into hiding,
yes,
even with all this support. And the media, they don't call him out.
No.
They cover for him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. After first telling us that, he had to go into isolation because he came into contact with someone. And now, of course, they've changed the story has been changed, and he's hiding in a bunker. And, of course, people don't even call him out on that, on the fact that, he said one thing, and now the narrative has changed. They just effortlessly adjust to the new narrative. You're absolutely right. He is not just, he not only would, if he spoke to these people, he would have the mass of establishment media, an establishment opinion behind him. He doesn't have to worry about being the target of a colour revolution attempt, and yet he still chooses to hide in a basement. It basically shows that these people are not leaders. They're not politicians, not democratic politicians. They can't talk to their own people. They are able to impose huge edicts, having dramatic effects on people's lives. When the people come and want to talk to them about it, what do? They hide.
Yeah, the facade is crumbling.
I
the facade is
agree.
crumbling. These guys are, they're
I agree.
puppets. There's
I
nothing more
agree.
than that, and they're
I
they're
agree.
puppets that are propped up by the media and the globalists.
Yes.
Real quick, Alexander, where does this go from here? Is this a global movement? Is this something that the Trudeau government will try to dismantle and then just kind of throw down the memory hole and proceed with their authoritarian mandates? I mean, do you think they're going to continue to double down and triple down on these policies,
Well, I think if
or is the whole world now going to rally
yeah, I
and say
think
enough?
I think if they do that, if they triple down, I think they're acting incredibly unwisely, because I think that it isn't just the truckers and people like that. I think a critical mass of the people pretty much everywhere have now had enough, and I think if there is an attempt to continue with this much longer, then there will be a massive reaction, and a reaction that's going to make, the sort of votes we saw in 2016 over Brexit and the Trump victory, they will look small by comparison. So I think that if they do try to double down and triple down and quadruple down, then they will invite disaster on themselves. And the very fact that Trudeau feels that he has to hide ought to tell him that this would be a completely stupid thing to do. But the trouble with these people also, the Trudeaus, is that they are deeply arrogant. They don't like to look, as they say, weak, even though what is hiding in a bunker if not a demonstration of weakness? It's weak people, in fact, who are often the most stubborn and the most arrogant, who don't have the courage to shift positions and to adjust to the changing mood. So, though it would be a huge mistake for them to double and triple and quadruple down, it would not at all surprise me if that's what they try to do. In which case, against the background of rising prices, rising food and energy prices over the course of 22, with the people becoming ever more exasperated, we're going to see massive protests in Canada, in Europe, in America, in all kinds of places, and it will be like nothing we have ever seen before, at least not since the protests of 1968 and that sort of time, and probably on a much bigger scale even than those.
I wonder how worried world leaders are that are in it with Trudeau. Like, I wonder, like, how worried like a Rutte is, or a Biden, or Macron, or all of these guys that are all in the same school of thought and have all kind of subscribed to the same type of mandates, maybe a little different from country to country, but pretty much they're all on the same page. I wonder what's going through their head as they see Trudeau in hiding. I wonder what like Mark Rutte is saying as he's sitting in the Netherlands, and he's saying, "Crap, when are they going to come for me?" You know what I mean?
No, you see, this is it. This is where I think they all live in a bubble, because I don't think they think that. I suspect that at some level they still believe that they're the masters of the universe and that they can control things effectively in their own countries. And, they realise that Trudeau's having problems, but they probably still believe that he'll somehow get through them. I don't think they have that degree of understanding of the situation and of feelings out there amongst people to understand that this policy has to change. I mean, they become so used to living in a bubble for so long. They become so used to speaking to people who think always like themselves. They become so used to a media that always supports them. And they become so reliant upon the police and the riot police to keep things in check for them, that I don't think they really understand that this thing could get out of control very fast and very easily. And if it does, they will be as panicky and as confused as Trudeau is at the moment. And, just give it a few months. If they carry on like they're doing, they could very easily find themselves in exactly that kind of situation.
Yeah. And weather gets nicer as we enter the spring. More people out on the streets. It's not going to get easier.
No, of course not. It gets
if
much
they
harder.
continue down this path.
Absolutely. It gets very much harder, exactly.
All right. We will continue to follow this story, this huge story. The Duran.locals.com, everybody, and Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, and Super U. Look for us there and go to the Duran shop. Use the code GOODDAY and get 10% off all merch. There's the mug. There is the code. Good day. Take care, everybody.